the line, but then when the video didn't go on, I was waiting for it. That's ridiculous. But anyway, here we are at Five Count, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. We are back after a brief break. We both didn't have a lot going on. So, but we're happy to be back in the game. George, I'm on my phone, so send out a tweet and let people know we are on the air here. I'm not sure why I didn't have my our video go off, but nonetheless, George, we got an interesting topic tonight. But before we get to that, like I have a bit of an agenda here. I got some things planned out. It's insane. First of all, like we were talking about the weather in Texas. I mean, shout out to everyone who's going through those floods, man. Like that's terrible. Like just ridiculous. So I hope you know. I hope everyone's all right. That looks really. That's a terrible situation.
Weather here has definitely been something that I have not experienced myself, so I don't necessarily know exactly people going through. My heart goes out to the people who are actually affected because I know for a fact that that's not anything that you want to play with, especially with the natural disasters in Texas. It's always a larger area with a larger amount of something. So it's always something really big. It's always bigger in Texas. The storms get big too. So unfortunately, those people are going through it in center Texas, and I know for a fact that a lot of people are affected by the weather as well as that particular flood. So um, my heart goes out to them because I know it's a very catastrophic event. I've been through my fair share of hurricanes. It's not nothing that you want to mess with. So I know, yeah, weather can get pretty bad.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I hope everyone's staying safe and it's all right out there. And next up, George, I got to bring it up, and unfortunately, it's a terrible transition, but that's the way things work sometimes. As anyone can see my hat right there. That is the first place Toronto Blue Jays, ladies and gentlemen, first place in the American League East, and the best team in baseball. We're up 6-1 on the White Sox. Unfortunately, there's a rain delay. So shout out to the Blue Jays. They're playing well. My mom's happy. My mom's a big Blue Jays fan. So we're excited about that. And I have one more announcement. Um, There he is. There he is.
Man
Chiming
of the
in.
hour.
There he is. Uh,
Leave it to John to find the technical
yeah,
difficulty.
yeah, I hit the wrong button here. Jesus, I'm an old man. Anyway, next up, George, a lot of people tuning into this know I'm involved with a promotion up here in Canada called Rock Solid Wrestling. And we are on an app called Watchy. So it's one of these apps that has a bunch of different content. You can find it on any platform. Just go in your app store, WATCHIE, and look for Rock Solid Wrestling, and you can see a bunch of our stuff. If you like classic pro wrestling, that's what I call it. That's what we do, and we do it really well. And I'm excited that people, and it's available in the U.S. and Canada and anywhere, so anybody can watch it. And you might see my mug on there a time or two at some point. So it's great. It's really exciting about that. So those are my three announcements.
You know, I don't have anything as interesting in my life going on like that right now. Of course, other than like I said, the weather has been bad in Texas. Like I said,
Yeah.
we need to staying above water. I don't mean to segue back to that, but at the same time,
Hey,
I
like
know
it's
like
terrible.
that's just what it is. It's not necessarily been bad. It's just like I say, in certain areas it's been worse. Here
Yeah.
it's been hot, then it starts to rain, it gets hot
Yeah.
again. Um, you might hear the thunder and lightning in here because it's just that loud. I mean, I feel like I'm
Mhm.
living right next to a cloud. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about them great eras. We're here to talk
We
about
are here to
the
talk about the creators, and I'm happy to do it. Let's dig into this. I'm excited about this show, George. This is your idea,
yeah.
pretty much.
I mean,
Tell me how this came about.
I think about things all the time, and I don't necessarily kind of indulge myself. Uh, anywho,
You don't like to toot your own horn, but in the word of Arn Anderson, toot toot. You have a good. This was you because you saw something on Twitter and thought,
yeah, no, like this is like the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So the quote was, in my mind, the ruthless aggression era is better than the attitude era, and it's not even close. This is the quote that it said. I looked at it, I seen it, I was just like, This person has snorted something of a substance I've never seen before. He could tell me he don't like, sniffing coke, but he sure likes the way it smells. So at the end of the day, I'm sitting here like, that's impossible.
Allegedly,
Allegedly, but it's impossible to say the Attitude Era is not
listen,
as
like,
good as the Ruthless Aggression, in my opinion. But we're here to
yeah,
rank them
but
based off of the facts tonight.
that's sparked the episode though. That's why we're here. That's a great episode, and I listen. I don't know how we break up these eras. Like, there's really no rules on this show. I don't think so. Like, I have a few of them defined that you can define them. I think by a year, maybe by a key person or a. And I know there's so many great eras in wrestling, and but I want to kick it off because I don't usually, but I want to kick it off, and I think this is a fair time. And well, I haven't obviously didn't live through. I lived through the back half of this era a little bit, but I didn't live through the crux of it a lot. Unfortunately, I caught some of it, but obviously seen a bunch of stuff on tape. And I think it needs to be put on the list, and that's the territories, the '70s to the early '80s.
Hmm.
Um, Needs to be put on the list because if you talk about the number of people drawing money and seeing wrestling, like it was insane then. Like every state had a territory. Like Louisiana, I've never been to Louisiana or Mississippi or Arkansas, Oklahoma,
I've been
but
all
they were
over.
doing big ass business in like the '80s, and like every territories were doing well, and there were more wrestlers and more people buying wrestling tickets. And I just think in wrestling, especially with the online internet wrestling community, there's a very big sense of recency bias. That like what happened last week is the greatest thing of all time and it's epic. And I'm like, it's not. And I think people need to have some like need to learn a bit more about the history of the business. So I think the territories needs to be on the list. I didn't know how to break it up. So I went to '70s to early like '84, '85, something like that. Like I said, I caught the back half of it when stuff like the AWA was still on, and a couple small territories, of course, but not in the heart of it. So I think the territories has to be on the list. So I put it on there.
You know what? I'll accept that. I'll also bring somebody else to the party that I feel like, because we're talking about wrestling eras. We're not talking
Harris.
about WWE specifically.
No,
Notice
no,
the wording
no, no,
because
no.
this is a pro WCW podcast. And I'm going to tell you right now, the era that deserves to be in there is the Nitro era. I
I
looked
call it the
at it.
Bischoff era too. The Bischoff era, because I'm thinking like
Hmm.
when he
Hmm.
took over, like '94 ish to like '99, that 5 year
99. Yeah.
span. I think, especially, of course, like you could highlight '96 to '99, but I think he was doing some decent things leading up to that, and that's why I like to call it the Bischoff era.
It grew a lot. It grew a lot really, really fast. I know for a
But
fact that
but you could actually you could go from like '95 to '99, and that to me that's the Bischoff Nitro era because that Nitro show was just yeah, it's got to be on the list, man. Like it changed the business, it
literally changed
changed
the
the rest,
business.
it changed the
It was
business.
it was the one catalyst. Like, so a lot of times you have catalysts that kind of push things in a certain era. Like that pushed the Monday Night Wars. The Monday Nitro era pushed the Monday Night Wars, which made WWE that much better in the Attitude Era as well. I think that they bounced off of each other so well, and it had America flipping back and forth. Like, I put it to you like this: in '96, '97, and '98, your remote was like "fuck you" because that last button was getting worked out because you was flipping. Like Monday night was crazy. Like Monday night was like, let me put it to you like this: I'm about to be 37 years old. I remember what it's like to go to Blockbuster on a Friday night. That's what Monday nights were like.
Oh,
Monday
those were the
nights were
days.
blockbuster nights. And you don't know real wrestling unless you know what a blockbuster night is. A blockbuster night was probably the greatest night of Americans at one point in time. Going somewhere on a Friday night, getting a movie of your choice, and having all the snacks available to you at that place. Like, bro, we going to Blockbuster
That's
tonight. We don't need no
Nitro.
dinner. If we don't need no
Yeah.
dinner, but it felt like that every Monday night because every Monday night gave you raw, passionate wrestling, power, drama, field action. It gave you everything. Like people today watch all kind of shows for certain reasons, but that particular time frame, that era, gave us a lot to look
Yeah,
forward to.
it did,
So,
and
and
it
it led with so much
changed.
promise.
Yeah, and it forced
Yeah,
WWE to change, like forced them to up their game.
absolutely. It started making
Yeah,
people, look at wrestling a little bit different too. A lot of
yeah,
people started watching wrestling who didn't watch wrestling at that time simply
yeah,
because of just little things. Like
yeah,
this is how you know people were watching wrestling but not really watching wrestling. To know when Razor Ramon came over to WCW and you started watching WCW a little bit more, that lets me know that you guys were watching. You might not have liked what was going on over there, but you liked what was going on over here just a little bit
yeah,
better. So at the end of the day, I
mhm,
feel like that kind of caused a lot of new fans to kind of come into the wrestling fold. So,
yeah,
and this is before the internet. I'm not gonna
yeah.
lie, wrestling before the internet,
Way
totally
better,
different time. You think you shocked now
way
because
better.
returns, you knew about it 2 weeks before. You just didn't know what it was going to look like on TV.
Yeah,
Back then,
mm,
when somebody returned, like Sting sitting in the rafters every night and it not being something that everybody talked about on the internet weeks before, or he's gonna be here tonight type thing, was like
oh,
it
they
was just
announced.
like tune in and watch.
Yeah, yeah. You should do to see if he was. So, but I agree that like the Nitro era is there, and George. So I'm gonna move it on. Like I think I'm gonna put it on the floor. Obviously, is the Attitude Era. I think it's for me. It's the number one. For me, it's the one that was. I can't remember wrestling that hot. I just don't like. Just it was so insanely like. I look at different things like talent and box office and like angles and matches, and I mean like that Attitude Era had it all. Like the top stars like The Rock, Undertaker, Stone Cold, Mick Foley, Triple H, like all these guys, Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, like all those guys were huge. And so they had everything. And being like at that time 18 years old when it started, and then like 21 when it ended, kind of thing. It was like
Yeah,
I was the prime candidate. So it's yours. The Attitude Era. I was fortunate that in Canada we got Nitro, as I've said before, Raw on Mondays because we're always beat the shit out of Nitro in Canada, and then Nitro on Tuesdays, same station. So it was awesome. So
yeah.
George, what's your fourth pick?
Well, it's only so many spots that you can actually say kind of can be taken into consideration, but the golden era has to go in here. We know it
And we're
does.
talking like 85 to like 90 something.
93 exactly.
Yeah,
They
probably.
labeled it
Yeah,
as they labeled it 80 to 93, but I don't think 80
yeah.
at all because at the
No,
same time I feel like that was really really early as far as it being labeled as the golden era. I'll give it 84 to 85, right
yeah, to
around
like
there,
92,
to
93.
like
Yeah.
93. And I say that because of course there was a really vast popularity in wrestling at a certain point in the 80s that kind of took
Hmm.
off. The golden era kind of just launched itself. You had very popular superstars. Of course you had Hogan, of course you had Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, all the goods and the greats at that particular time. It seemed like everybody who could come out of the curtain at that point was a major factor. So I would always say the golden era was definitely something that I wish I could have had watched more of when it was live, because I think that once you kind of got into what wrestling was for a lot of people, it really kind of took off at that particular time as far as them watching wrestling and understand who their favorite wrestler was. You go from Andre the Giant to the big popularity of Hulk Hogan to the massive personality that is Randy Savage to, Vince McMahon kind of coming in and kind of making a little bit more of a promotion out of the deal. Like the golden era kind of started off of basically it kind of launched wrestling into its own field to where
Stratosphere.
like it kind of made it to where all right,
Like,
you know how they have like General Hospital, everybody knows that. Like the
yeah.
golden era started wrestling basically for a lot of people.
Dude, every kid, like I'm that kid. I'm like 84. Lucky enough, like that's when the WWF came on, started coming on in Toronto. It used to be like a local show, and then they brought in. That's when Hogan came in, and it's like every kid my age watched wrestling. everybody's watching it. That's why like they were able to do the crowd they did with WrestleMania 3 because their viewership was through the roof. Like it was just because it was garnered to kids. It wasn't garnered to adults anymore. And like my dad was, I was lucky enough that my dad loved wrestling, but it was just such an amazing era. I think I don't I put the Attitude Era higher. I just think the Attitude Era created so many more wrestling fans just because there was the internet at that time and it allowed help to spread. So and just I think Austin was just the biggest draw for that period of time. Like I think I calculated something like he did over like 12 million pay per view buys on events he headlined during that era, something like that. Like it's absolutely insanity.
That's a
So
crazy number for that particular time
that
frame.
is,
So
yeah, it's
you hear
nuts.
anything over 1 million in the '80s is probably lights out astronomical, and to do
Yeah,
12 during that area is like is such a odd number to have in the wrestling business where nobody liked wrestling, nobody liked seeing that. Like it's just phenomenal how, like I say, the golden era kind of broke
yeah.
out. But at the same time, what do you know about everything else? I think everybody kind of has a spin off of this. It's like the golden era not only started the phase of wrestling, but if you look at some of the other wrestling territories that got better after the golden era, because if you looked at it, they couldn't pay
Well,
everybody
they
back
all went out of
then.
business, but the
Yeah, they couldn't
territories
pay
did.
everybody.
But they did, like it did up the interest level and notoriety of wrestling. I think in general, like I know that I was lucky enough when I got into it. Like I got into like I got every show, so it was cool. Um, but yeah, the golden era, George. Like that's it. So we got a fifth one. I got one, George. Here it is. I'm throwing it out. Is I'm calling it the NWA 85 to 90. Now it became WCW, of course, but they were still using the NWA, so I'll count it. But really, like the prime of Ric Flair and like the Four Horsemen. I just think that if you look at the history of wrestling, Ric Flair is one of the pivotal figures, and as Tornado said, he's one of the timing belts. And I just think that you have to recognize his era and just recognize the guys he wrestled and that it really produced. Like he working Dusty and Magnum TA and Sting, like a young Sting, and Luger and Ricky Steamboat and like all these amazing Terry Funk, all these incredible champions. And it was just like Barry Windham, like all these amazing talents. And I just think that era needs to be put on the list. And I mean, all respect to the ruthless aggression era, but I don't think you can compare it to Ric Flair's prime.
No, I would think the ruthless aggression era is a great era in wrestling. I think that it has its own feel. Um, hmm, I just feel
Like
like
the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express. Like look at the talent and the matches, like just the incredible matches. I just don't think, and the box office that era, like when that Crockett era did big box office. Like I think in 1986 they did $25 million, and they ran like you know they expanded a little bit, but they ran a small area. Like they ran the Carolinas, Virginia, like the South, and it's just like to me they were like the NASCAR of professional wrestling. Like NASCAR is like obviously a southern based entity, but it's got national appeal, and I think that was the thing with the NWA at that time is that they had national appeal. They were on TBS, and they were just once you got the TBS time slot and you started working, I think it needs to be on the top five. Like I don't think Ric Flair's prime can go unnoticed.
it really can't go unnoticed. I feel like it's one of those situations where you kind of have to put, and it's not just because of Ric Flair. Let's go ahead and put it out there. It's not just because of Ric Flair. Ric
No, but
Flair,
like that's
Dusty, the
he
like
was
I
the
say, the
engine. Yeah,
whole,
all those
you know,
people, like all
all the
that,
whole
like
like
but to
everybody that
me, it's his prime. Like it's his prime. Like he carried that ball. He carried that. Like you're handing out. He was Walter Payton. Like let's be
now
honest.
recency bias. The reason why I know a lot of people love the ruthless aggression era is because, and I'm not saying because y'all grew up during this time, but that's John Cena's era. that's
It's the
mostly
start.
John Cena's,
It's the start of
that's
his
his
era.
ascension. Yeah, that's his ascension. That's when he became the John Cena that everybody liked and everybody was trying to see. The Doctor of Thugonomics was there, and then of course you had a lot of, there was a lot of matches. Now I'm not gonna say the Ruthless Aggression era didn't give you nothing at all, but it gave you a lot of
It was
give and take.
great,
It was great. It
but
gave you a lot of give and take. But for this list, I just feel like these eras that we've listed have a
talent, matches, box office,
like
everything.
honestly, every era that we've mentioned was able to feed off of the era prior to it. That's how good the era was prior to it, 90% of the time. That's why Ruthless Aggression doesn't necessarily get the push that I feel like it does because it came after the Attitude Era, which is
Yeah,
kind
I
of
get
hard to
it,
follow. It's a
but
hard act to follow. And I think because you guys, you know, oh, I didn't really grow up in the Attitude Era, so I don't really understand. That's because
yeah,
the internet really
ugh,
wasn't taking off right then and there. It started to kind of come into what I would like to call the PG era, when the internet really kind of took off and took over. When it's kind of like, all right,
um,
a little
the
bit
PGO is
more.
the worst era in wrestling history.
Yeah,
Like
that
a
didn't
lot
do
of guys tried it, and they had a lot. They had talent and stuff like that. It was just so soft. Like
PG. It
not
was
the wrestlers, not the
what it
wrestlers. The
was.
wrestlers were
Just the
nothing
content.
against them. Yeah,
But
like it's like the new generation era. I think that's where like I
that's
kind of
another
I
one.
compare it to that. Like I definitely listen. The new generation era is underrated in terms of talent. Box office, the whole business was down, so it's kind of hard. But
Right.
like you look at talent, it's hard to like. They're not in the top five. I definitely think they're an honorable mention. But like Bret Hart, The Undertaker, Diesel, Shawn Michaels, like Razor Ramon, like all these talents. Yeah, but it's not done yet. It's still building. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think
still building. Like this
I
era,
don't think we can.
you can't tell me
The
this
story
era.
hasn't been written yet.
Yeah, it's not over yet, and there's a lot of things in this era that need to be critiqued as a whole before we get to saying, oh, this era can actually count. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that it doesn't. I'm not saying that it doesn't have potential to make a list like such, because of course, when it comes back around, we'll be right back here talking about what the fuck
yeah,
happened and go ahead and add this one on.
yeah,
But
yeah.
we gotta see where it ranks. Now, as far as the talent, I would say this era has more talent than a lot of other eras, but at the same time, the talent is not as big as it needs to be. It's just kind of really compact as far as where you have your talent too. You're very limited in what you actually are giving us
Yeah.
without giving us more. I always say not necessarily pushing the NXT talent would actually be the greatest thing, you know, ever. The potential is undeniable. That's the whole
It
reason
is,
NXT exists. That's the
but
whole
I
reason
think
NXT exists.
that's why it's not to me on the list though, because it's still playing out. You never know. Like again, you always never know in wrestling who's going to take over. But
Right.
George, we got five things on the list, and some might argue, oh, you're just trying to put the ruthless aggression era down. I said, no, I think honestly these eras were better. If like I figured my criteria was like talent, box office, angles, and matches. I mean the territories. I mean a lot of people didn't see it, but you look at the guys who drew money. They drew a lot of money every night in different towns every single night. Um, it produced great matches, like just unbelievable. Like the AWA was doing, like there were guys making in the late '70s like 350 grand in the AWA, like just big money. So, and then you look at the early world class Dallas, like that was on fire. So
Yes.
I think we can combine that as an era, and the talent they produced is just a who's who of this business. So you combine that in there, it's a pretty strong. The Nitro Bischoff era is obviously the Attitude Era, the Golden Era, the '80s, and the WWF. And I put on, I think rightfully so, the NWA kind of '85 to '90, Ric Flair, Four Horsemen, Luger, Sting, all those great talents. So George, how do we rank these? I know number one is. I think
I
there's
know
no
who number five
denying.
is.
What's that?
Five, I got the NWA. And I say that because do you really got to beat in the golden era?
That's fair. That's fair. I got yeah. That's fair.
Four,
I think I'll I think I'll argue that. You know what? Like, that's a tough one. No, I know number one is. I think I know who number two is. Um, and I'm listen. I'm gonna argue it, and it's gonna be hard. But like, if you look in totality at what they did and the stars they produced and the money they drew, the territories. Like, look at the guys, the main stars in the territories.
Okay,
Like
okay, okay,
the Von Erichs,
okay. I'll give you the
Junkyard.
territories at five, and then you have to go NWA
No,
at four.
I would put the territories at either three or four. So like, is they produced a
Over
lot of
the
talent.
Monday Night War, over WCW from 95 to 99.
I mean,
Those
let's look at
years,
history.
if you're talking about an angle, box office sale, talent, off of your metrics alone, that era in WCW made everything WCW relevant for those
Yeah,
years.
I get it
Those
too,
years
but like,
alone put them above WWE for 83 weeks. We talk about
I
it all the time. The 83 weeks. At
I
the end of the
understand
day,
that, but I do get that. But Bruno Sammartino sold out Madison Square Garden like every month for like a decade in the territories. Like, I mean, I think it might be a little hard to compare because like,
it
and
kind of
I just
is
think
hard to compare because I
well,
think
because like
because
you look at
Kermit had
The
Hogan.
Junkyard Dog. The Junkyard Dog did a record in the Superdome that stood for like 30 years. So like WWF showed up again. Like I think they didn't have cable TV except in Atlanta where it was the biggest show on cable television,
Yeah.
which started. I just think the territories to me should be the third one. I know Nitro, but I think when you look at what the territories did for wrestling, setting the foundation that eventually became Nitro, because wrestling on TBS was hot in the early 1980s. Now it's hard because you take a group of like over a number of years, but I just think they always get forgotten. I just think people always forget the success of the territories, and and I just think they produced such great stars, which led to the golden era, who I would put second. But if you want to put Nitro at three, I'm fine with it. But at least I argued my point on the territory.
From 95 to 99 for 4 years. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you this: the reason why I say in 4 years to make an impact that literally changes the landscape of wrestling. It
Yeah.
only took you 4 years to do that with Nitro. Like with Nitro, I put it to you like this: the territories came because, of course, you definitely had a lot of talent with it. That's
But
the that's the thing
that's
about
the
the
way it
territories for
was.
me. This is why the territories would have to go four, and Nitro has to go three. If you're comparing talent, if you're comparing um the amount of talent versus how much talent you actually just had that you were pushing, like I can honestly say, do you think the mid card of the territories would match up with the mid card of WCW?
Um, Depended on the territory, but like some of them might have been the big card in WCW. Let's be honest with you. Like I
Hmm.
mean, like Kevin Sullivan was the territories guy.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know,
I know there's a lot of
like
territory guys that ended up jumping
it's
on
hard to compare,
Nitro.
but I
Like
think like
that's
I
why this
just look at it
yeah, no, that's why this debate is actually really important because
like
this part of the list is the hard part. Everything else is literally almost set in its own foundation.
yeah.
I literally think three, four, and five literally make this list a whole lot worse than what it actually is, simply because
Well,
not to ruin the surprise to everybody,
no,
but Attitude one, Golden Era two, it
there
ain't close.
too. Yeah,
It
yeah, it
ain't
ain't
close.
close.
And then
Um,
of course you have to kind of build this list afterward.
but but even look at Hogan in the AWA. Like I mean, and Bockwinkel, those guys drew big money. Like, but like in like Memphis, Kareem mentioned Memphis. Like Lawler drew sold out the friggin' Mid-South Coliseum every week.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
was a different business, and I just think that there's so much like I'll concede because I think we got to get the show going. But and I know how big of a WCW fan you are, but I argue my point on the territories, and I think that, like so many. But
You gotta
so,
you gotta look at it like,
so
you know, from an
yeah,
objective
I
side.
get it. You know, like I get it. I still got
And
an
I don't
NWO shirt. So
and trust me, and that's another part. Like it's just that iconic. Like it's some
yeah,
I put it
I
to you
get
like this:
it.
WCW Nitro put a taste in your mouth that you'll never forget. That
No,
like
no,
that's a blockbuster Friday night moment. So of
yeah.
course, like you say, the rest of the list is kind of already set, but we kind of have to kind of solidify 4 and 5. So what do we
Territories
got?
is 4, NWA's
Territory
5, Nitro's
at 3,
3,
and then
Golden
Golden
Era, and
Era at
then
2, and then
Attitude
Attitude
Era.
Era at 1. If you could
Honorable
take
mentions:
honorable mentions, let's do
Ruthless
it.
Aggression and
Ruthless,
New Generation.
absolutely, absolutely. And the reason why Ruthless Aggression gets the honorable mention, I'll never take away what Brock Lesnar actually did early in his career.
No,
I'll never take away John Cena and what he's done for WWE in a whole. I feel like Umaga was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and JBL had one of the best runs that you can ever put in an era. But the thing is, those are all the hallmarks that you kind of had to kind of have. The Deadly Alliance,
yeah, the
hey,
dangerous. Yeah, that's a good one. Like the 90, like 91 to like 93 WCW. There's so many great matches and like talent. They just didn't know how to use it. But
yeah,
like you mentioned, the Dangerous Alliance. That was I was 12 years old then. I was heavy into it. We had got TBS. I watched Saturday night every night. Watched the Clash. Watched Kareem always says like Lex Luger came out of the gift box and knocked Sting's knee out. Set up the title match at Super Brawl. It is the Eddie Ruthless Aggression era, but
yeah.
I don't put it above the other ones. Like I'm sorry, I love Eddie Guerrero, but like I just like it also I'm not putting it above those other ones. I'm
I'm
just
gonna
not.
ask you a question based off of our list out of the 1 through 5. If you can pick one thing that's not commonly picked about these eras to say, go watch. What would you want people to go watch from specifically the golden era or the ruthless aggression era that would kind of,
Oh,
give an eye?
I think to me anything for the Attitude Era. Go watch anything like go watch Austin in '99. Like watch Austin in '99. Watch the January 4th show where Mick Foley wins the title, and and he and he and Austin comes out and gets that pop. His match with Vince, like just Austin '99 to me was like watch that, but watch the undercard too. Like I mean the mid card because like you had Val Venus, you had the Godfather, you had Rikishi, you had the tag team division. Like it's just so much, but like I really like St. Valentine's Day Massacre as a pay per
Okay.
view, and Backlash '99 is really good too. So they had a lot of really good pay per views. So watch that. The Golden Era, so many. Fortunately, but like, I'm a big fan. They just posted on the WWE Vault, and I encourage everyone. SummerSlam '99, '89. Pardon me, SummerSlam '89. Like it's just packed with good stars and good matches. Um, and like I'd encourage people to go watch those two. Um, and the territory, watch anything with the Von Erichs. Like when they were like 83, and like women were probably throwing their panties in the ring. It was just insanity. It's just like just, but new generation era. I love
Okay.
that era because I have fondness of that era because like that was when I would go to shows in this community, Brantford, Ontario, which is famous for it's the hometown of Wayne Gretzky. So but they used to come there like a few times a year, and you would just wait out back, and every wrestler would be there meeting it. It was a smaller show. It was really, but new generation definitely Diesel versus Bret Hart.
Okay.
Yeah,
For
and
me,
yeah,
I have to take in the Attitude Era. I'm a really like I was all over the place, but one of my favorite things was watching the Ministry of Darkness in '98
Late
because
90s, yeah. Yeah,
98, 99, around that time,
yeah.
and
Except
then
when they hung the boss man.
I'm not gonna lie, I believed it. I thought he was gonna die that night. I'm not gonna. I'm like, yo, I'm not for hangings, as you can probably tell why, but they damn near hung a man on live TV. So it's just like, god damn.
Fuck it.
But putting Austin up on the cross, taking abducting Stephanie, the whole storyline there, like that's a really in-depth storyline that you kind of have to look into. The Buried Alive match between him and Kane for the King of the Ring, things like that. Like it was a lot of shit that kind of happened in that fucking whole era. Um,
I got an honorable mention.
yeah,
Um, I like to do ECW, like you pretty much do the entire run of the company because
and
it was,
yeah,
but
because
really from like
like
95 to like 90 to
90,
like 2000 when they went under.
98, really, I would say 98.
98 was really good,
Yeah, because
but
98 was the year. 99 was like I would the
they were
reason why
good.
reason why I don't like 99 as much is because 98 was so good that they couldn't follow it up. And a lot
Yeah,
of
but
talent ended up leaving.
they did though. They had that's when Rob Van Dam wrestled Jerry Lynn, which was super good in '99. They had a lot of talent, and like they had like Rhino and Steve Corino and Rob Van Dam and Sabu and the Sandman. They had a lot of talent. They just didn't have any money, and that's the problem. So I definitely ECW. The one if you're gonna watch an ECW pay per view, usually it's Heatwave '98, but like a lot of them are really good. Like I like the one. Like watch those Rob Van Dam Jerry Lynn matches, and watch like Tajiri and Super Crazy and Little Guido
Yeah,
back then. Like really,
yes.
they had very like they had good wrestlers. Like obviously they're known for blood and guts, but like they had really good wrestlers. So that's another honorable mention. And it's a it's gonna be it's just gonna be an odd one, but I definitely want to throw on the and it's I didn't put it in the territories era, but like the Stampede Wrestling era from like I'm gonna put it on. You won't know it, but I will. When like he came back in like 1985, 86 to like 1989. Yeah, I remember seeing stuff on TSN up here in Canada, and that was when they had like guys like Benoit early, Johnny Smith. Um, they had Lethal Larry Cameron. They had all these guys like who were really good wrestlers. Um, and I just think that like they had some really good wrestling. Like really, it wasn't much on the production side, but it's like they had. If you can find it, go back and watch it. It's very local. Like like they say, it's a very local promotion. But like Jushin Thunder Liger came through there. Like they had a ton of wrestlers come through, and so I got to throw them on the honorable mentions list.
That's
You
fair.
know,
You
and
definitely have
Owen
to
Hart was
tell.
around that time, and yeah, so yeah, George. I mean, like it's interesting we talk about the Nitro era because Goldberg is having his last match on Saturday, I guess. Good luck to Bill Goldberg. Um,
I'm not mad at, like I say, I think the general public has that knee jerk reaction to everything to kind of allude to the fact of how they hate the older celebrities coming back to kind of wrestle in these new talents in certain matches. I can see that. I can see why you're upset about the idea of Goldberg coming back to wrestle Gunther for the title. Anybody could be like, "Oh, he should be working somebody else on another storyline." Sometimes you gotta let some things happen. It's just kind of the rite of passage in a sense. I just honestly felt like there's you know a time and a place. No, there's not. There's no way in the world Goldberg wins, in my opinion. But at the same time,
no,
I've seen crazier things happen. I can't say I haven't.
you know,
Um,
here's the thing about it is if it's done the way it should be done, Goldberg's going to use his last match to pass the torch to a guy that I think he sees as a top star. and then Gunther gets to hang on his mantle that I retired Bill Goldberg.
Yeah, and that's
And
a
that's the way it needs to be done. And I mean,
that's the way it
I
should be
think,
perceived too, because you have a
yeah,
lot of things that are kind of clouding people's judgment. Oh, he's 67 years old, or he's too old to be wrestling. Why do you think it's a retirement match? You got
yeah,
to keep
one more
your job
time.
anyway. And everybody's not trying to end their job the same way some of you fuckers are trying to end your job. Some of you motherfuckers ain't even putting in a 2 weeks notice and getting fired, let alone trying to sit up here and tell somebody like Bill Goldberg not to wrestle his
I
last.
mean,
Not saying he
George Foreman boxed the dude, and he was 45, eating
Mike Tyson.
cheeseburgers.
Mike Tyson just had his last. Well, I don't know
Yeah,
about his last
uh,
fight, but it sure goddamn been
like,
against Logan Paul. I mean, Jake Paul. So at the end of the
yeah,
day, you have to end it somewhere. It's not going to look like what you want this person to look like in the beginning of their career. You have to remember the good times. This is a perfect opportunity for you guys to understand what Goldberg meant to WCW. If you want to go take a look at the vault and go see some of the 98 matches, some of the 96, come up matches that he started with as well.
yeah, he's on
Of course,
fire.
like Goldberg in '97 was something that you can ever
Well,
actually imagine.
yeah, Goldberg in
Like,
'98 he was as hot as anyone has ever been. There
right,
are
like
very few people who've been as hot as him. Like he was on
build-up to Goldberg
fire,
was crazy. It was like he
just
came out of
murdering
nowhere.
dudes.
He rode a wave that I don't think anybody else could have carried in any. Yeah, I always hated Goldberg. He wasn't even a heel, and he had people like Kareem hating him because, of course,
Well, because he became the Yankees, right? That's what Nash said. He became the Yankees, but just
absolutely.
crushing Glacier every Thursday on Thunder, just every
But if
Thursday,
you look at the
with the
talent that backed
snowstorm
it
and
up,
all,
it
beating
was
the brakes
always
off.
something of it's not the top talent yet, and they kind of built him perfectly in a sense of they already had storylines going on with the big talent. Now you have
Yeah,
something else coming that's really really powerful, that's really something that you really can't stop. And by the time you got the Hogan versus Goldberg, the Hogan versus Nash, the Hogan versus Scott Hall, those
yeah.
matches that everybody was looking forward to, Goldberg was probably the hottest thing next to
Hottest
Sexy
thing.
Red. And then, of course, WCW has a real good thing about taking some of the hottest talent and then shooting it in the face on live
Um,
TV. Maybe at a stun gun at a pay per view. I don't know.
um,
But at the same
I,
time, it's a. I I want to say this about Goldberg in this particular sense. I would have loved for his last match to have been something of a rivalry that he had during his career at some point. But at this particular point, there's
but,
really nobody
but
left
all
for
those
people to
dudes are,
wrestle.
yeah, all those dudes are
Yeah. So
retired.
so you
You
have to
know,
kind of take somebody who's gonna give him a match that's gonna be
yeah,
worth having too. I mean,
and and you're elevating a guy. I think that's what I think he's doing. Is that everyone always says Bill? Like I think if he loses, which maybe he wins by count out or DQ or something stupid, but I mean, like I think he elevates the young star. And the other thing I love about the Goldberg build was he's essentially, and like you ever listen to Kevin Sullivan? There's tons of shoot interviews out there with Kevin Sullivan, he was just a genius. And he was the guy who was booking Goldberg and booked him as Mike Tyson. Short back boots, black trunks, fucking no robe, come out, knock you dead, go back. And that was it. He didn't talk. And like he got over on his own. Like people were like, whoa, fuck, this is awesome. And so I think like, but again, I just hope he goes out there and I hope it is that Gunther wins and like he can hang that and he can, you know, I don't think he does. I think that there's a tradition in wrestling where if you're on your way out, you do the business, and I think that's what's going to happen. And I think
you
Goldberg will,
kind of
and I
have
think
to
it's
do that. Like, I think there's
yeah,
no reason, there's no way he wins. He doesn't take the title and do anything with it. Like, I'll be damned if there's two people who are on their last run and they both take the title hostage in their last few weeks, and it's like John Cena and Goldberg are the
yeah,
champions.
but
Like, that'd be the craziest shit ever to see. But
they're
that's
not
not
doing
going to
it.
happen. They're not doing
They're
that.
not doing
I don't think that's popular by the people that actually watch wrestling on a daily basis to kind of say, all right, this is what they want to see. They want to see Goldberg come back.
No,
He's not going to give you a lot of matches. I think if he had one last hurrah, if you knew that this was his one last match, you want to see what the last match looked like. And of course, like I always say, there's always a little bit of give and take in the business.
No,
Um,
it's not. Not even close. It's not
right.
that.
No, it's not great for him to win in a sense, but it's going to be very
No.
entertaining, I'm
Not
sure.
for him to win at all. Like it's for him to draw numbers, and I think put a guy over who is like like the best in the world right now. So, I
He's
mean, I
going to
hope
have a
that's how.
that's going to be, what that is. He's going to have a pop. He's going to have
Oh, a huge pop, absolutely.
I mean, nobody. It's something about when you hear Goldberg's music. It's just a little bit different. It's like Domino's Pizza. It's nostalgic in their first few bites, but after a while, all right, I'm done with this shit. So at the end of the day, like you don't necessarily have to worry about the idea of Goldberg coming back to do anything other than this match, and it's on a Saturday.
This
It's not
match,
like you're taking Monday night to go ahead and ruin your Monday
yeah.
night. Whatever Seth Rollins was gonna do, but he's not gonna ruin that. He's gonna come in on a Saturday night. He's gonna have his last match, and he's gonna put it down you know, for the last time. You don't have to worry about him, coming back to face, Brock Lesnar and spear him 19 times in the first 15 minutes of the match. You don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. The thing about this is a guy who did a lot for the business throughout the years that he was actually in it. And to honestly be at this particular point in his career, you can't do anything but respect it because at the same time,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who didn't get this opportunity. And to be in
Listen,
business and say you've made it this far, it's a lot. It's a lot to kind of
yeah.
take in.
He's done a lot.
You know, I think the crazy thing is we're waiting on Ric Flair to do this, but Ric Flair has, faked this out so many goddamn times. I think that, we can respect somebody actually saying, "Oh, I'm going to hang it the fuck up," because Rick done told us 9 times that he was
Listen,
retiring, and that was in 10 different eras. So
Terry Funk retired like 12 times, and every time he came out of retirement, the business was better for him. Because Terry Funk was the best. But another thing I wanted to talk, George, we always talk about things we're watching on the vaults and the networks, and one of the things that's on the WCW um, was the WCW YouTube channel. They posted a lot of like the Great American Bashes from like '85 and '86 from like Greensboro, and there's no commentary. And
mhm.
the one thing that like dry that I just you get is the crowd. It's so different now where everybody sings and chants for everybody and let's go this guy, let's go. Not then. Like you listen to like Jimmy Garvin's wrestling against Rick Steiner and Kevin Sullivan, and the place goes bananas. It's just insane. The crowd. So I if you're gonna go listen to like watch them. It's really unique without the commentary, and just to hear that crowd noise and that crowd pop, and it was like, and that's from that '80s era. I think it had the Horsemen in some sort of a War Games match. So it was like, and those cars were just packed with guys, just like unbelievable. And Ronnie Garvin, I think, knocks a dude out, which I'm excited, which I love. I love a good knockout. So, George, that's all I got.
No, you can't hate a good knockout, but tonight was definitely a great show to kind of rank
Great
this.
show.
There will be people who hate this. There will be people who disagree.
Oh,
I know
God.
the masses are gonna be like, "How are these old fuckers still talking about the territories versus the ruthless aggression there?"
Piss
Blah.
on.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, you got to compare certain things with a certain standard. And of course, if you want to go ahead and move the lines and kind of compare that as well, bring me to it. I'm here to have a
Yeah.
a little banter never hurts. So at the end of the day, that's all I say. Just kind of come see me about what I said.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of, take into consideration what you say as well. I'm very open as far as, you know, criticisms about some of my takes. I think that's always the misconception of people who actually make takes or wild, um, wild takes and things like that, is that they don't necessarily want to follow up with you about them. Me, I'm one of those people who I'm willing to kind of see a wrestling opinion all the way through, and then kind of make sure that it aligns with what history actually says. Sometimes in some,
Well,
so I'm here for it.
Kareem's throwing shade on the European cheers, but listen, it's you need to watch that, and I think we had a great list. There's a lot of good wrestling in this era, and it's exciting. But George, this was a great show, and it was good to be back. We'll be back, I think, again next week, and then the week after. That we won't have a show because I'm on vacation then, so putting in that time. Got to relax a bit. But we'll think of another great topic next week. But man, another good one. Show number
Hey, well, this
45.
one, yeah, no,
And,
no, this is definitely
and
going to be one to watch.
yeah, and thanks everyone for watching and like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Check us out on any of the platforms. Thanks for supporting it. I'm just amazed people take the time to listen. I mean, it's unbelievable. But we wish George, got any last words?
Um, just keep praying for Texas because it is, pretty dangerous going on down here. I haven't
Yes,
heard anything
wild
about
stuff.
there being very, very much relief. I got coworkers and friends who live towards that area and that they, try to get out and be as safe as possible.
Yeah.
At this particular point in time, the only thing I got left to say is keep watching wrestling and keep critiquing it because it's always going to be something to talk about.
Have a good one.
Peace.